Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are fortunate to be talking with the 2021 Wynn Millions Main Event champion, Andrew Moreno. He overtook a field of 1,328 players with a prize pool of almost $12.5 million. A long, arduous tournament, 6 days, 3 starting flights. Initially, there was a $2 million first prize, $1 million second, but when it got down to 3 players, those 3 all locked up $1 million with a little incentive down the stretch for the ultimate winner, additional $313,000. And ultimately, Andrew won $1.4 million. Andrew, let's talk about the tournament. We mentioned previously in the interview that you were coming into this tournament really flying high, hot, playing well, doing well. You had just won over $127,000 heading into this at a Deep Stacks Championship poker event, $1,100 buy-in. You had final tabled an MSPT. So I would assume going into this event, you felt really on your game and really excited to play.
I did, but I also felt, again, it's that self-aware, making money off of the not self-aware. I feel very self-aware in that, not only is this tournament very prestigious, $10 million buy-in is going to really, I'm sorry, prize pool is really going to
Now
attract.
that is a big prize.
That's a bit, that would be, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Talk about life-changing money.
Yeah. $1 billion for free.
Wow. Whoa, $1 billion.
Um, but yeah, yeah, I knew it was going to attract all the best players in the world. And not only
Right,
was it going to attract all of the best players in the world, they could fire 6 buy-ins in this
right,
thing.
right.
So I knew that the field was going to be really tough, and it was going to be a really challenging tournament to do well in. But yeah, I knew that it was something that I really wanted for myself, which was I wanted to test myself against all the best players in the world in a deep format, which was, you get lots of chips, the levels are really long, which that's going to just intensify the advantage for the better players.
Right.
So, I knew that not only was I playing against a lot of these best players that were able to just fire all these bullets into this thing and build up big stacks, I knew that it was going to be a battle with them, deep stacked, many long days where you're trapped, just you and them, and it's an all-out war. And I was excited. It sounded fun, and I wanted to see what I could do.
You've had some close calls prior, in addition to that as well, including a circuit event in Los Angeles, a $1,700 main event there. Um, those experiences, all of them, did it help leading into something like this? That, hey, listen, I've been there, done that. Now let's just utilize the learnings that we've done during this pandemic and let's put it all together. Is that kind of the mentality going in?
Yeah, and I think something that, because I know that it's pretty common, especially in lower stake tournaments, for when you get down to, sometimes all the way to a final table, sometimes six-handed, three-handed, heads up, people are talking deal pretty quickly. So I've never been one to talk deal because, and I know that can be taboo. People, get frustrated or upset when you don't want to make a deal and you're the only one. But it's because I saw this moment for me out, in the future. And so in that particular tournament in LA, I got heads up, and we were like almost even in chips, and I just, I had been heads up and three-handed in tournaments before, and I never want to chop because I want that experience. I want to know, those high pressure moments and situations against tough opponents. I want to like figure out where my leaks are and see where I struggle. That way when I'm playing heads up for 7 figures or a title, then I feel like I have some experience to pull on. So that tournament I ended up getting second, and obviously when you don't discuss deal at that point, it's kind of stings a little bit. But I had this in mind, and I'm very grateful that I was able to pull on that experience. And that said, like when we did get three-handed, we did discuss deal. There was $1.2 million in a jump from third to first,
Right.
and the chip distribution was such that really anything could have happened. The chip leader had quite a bit more, but we were still like, I mean, I was the short stack and I had nearly 50 big blinds. So, we knew that it was going to be a battle and there was going to be a lot of variance in something like that. So we tried to just bring the payouts down a little bit closer, a bit of a smaller gap, and then we left. It was like around 300 and change to play for
Yeah.
the title.
I mean, still, it was 313 for the title, just under 101,000 for second. So we're still talking a lot of money. Yes, everyone's locked up $1 million, and I've talked about this a lot. When it gets to that kind of money, it now suddenly becomes like Monopoly money. You're just sitting there going, "My God, this is just unbelievable." As it keeps getting higher and higher. But when you get to that seven figures, now you've locked in the seven figures. But realistically, $313,000. How many times have you cashed for 313? I mean, it's very rare. I mean, it's still very, very rare. So I think that's still, there are a lot of times where you just lock it up and you just quote unquote play for the title. I've done it, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just that when you're playing for 313 as opposed to a title and a ring or and a seat of somewhere, that's a big difference. I mean, $313,000 is still significant money. So let's talk a little bit about the tournament at the beginning. Which flight did you play in? Did you play multiple bullets? How did it start about for you?
Yeah, so I recognize that. So day 1A, you just shouldn't play because all of the best players, all the Chidwicks, the Foxens, the Jason Coons, they're going to play day 1A because you can buy in and then you can re-enter if you bust. So they're going to fire the maximum amount of bullets. And what happens is, so all of the best players play day 1A.
Yep.
And then let's say that 75, 66%, let's just say 2/3 of them make it through to on their first or second bullet. So now let's just say 2/3 of the top 1% of poker players are no longer in the field for day one. Now, if you play day 1B, now you're only playing against a third of them. And then of that third, let's say, another 2/3 of them get through on day 1B. Now, if you play day 1C, now that percentage is just a tiny fraction of what it was if you had played day 1A or day 1B. And another effect of playing day 1C was that day 1C got to play with day 2C, where day 1A and B combined and played a day 2AB.
Right.
So day 2, they stayed together and they had that tougher field. And I actually did play day 1B and experienced the field was quite a bit tougher and busted that, and then went into day 1C and saw that it was a much better field. And then the effect of that being able to stay and play on the just the day 2C, I think was really valuable.
Right. And a lot of rec players also will play day 1C because, and what I mean by, I don't know if rec is the right word, but a lot of these people are coming in just because of it, right? So they don't want to come in on day one and then, stick around for 2 or 3 extra days. They'll come in later on, whether it's B or C and play. So if for anyone, this is just very common for the World Series, right? Day 1A or flight A is usually much smaller and packed of pros, right? And then B and C is obviously usually the massive one. But then there's the balancing act of days off and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so that's why, for me, I always play B for whatever reason, because I like that rhythm of having that day off in between. So you're early on in the tournament. How did it go for you? Was it pretty smooth sailing, leading up to the money bubble? Was it, not much, or did you have a big stack? How was it?
It was an interesting tournament for me. On day 1A, I got sat with a good friend of mine, and not really what you want, especially if they're a good poker player. And we got
to your
tangled
left.
up. Yeah, exactly. We got tangled up in a big pot where he made a mistake pre-flop and he put all the money in with ace king. I had aces, and that was a really pivotal moment for me in the tournament, allowed me to move through to day two with a big stack. And then day two, I proceeded to just lose all of those chips and then barely make day three. So day three is where the money bubble was. I came in
Right.
short on the money bubble, and I I just had this like mindset that I was like going to really tune in, and if I needed to go for it, I wasn't going to be shy. And I ran a big triple barrel bluff, 7 away from the money with a short stack against a guy who was one of the chip leaders of the tournament. He had like 125 big blinds, and I had like 17. And I just went for it. Yeah, I had ace queen. I raised from under the gun, and I bet all 3 streets on like a 5 high board, and got a fold on the river and was able to make the money. And to me, that was like a really, I was proud of myself because I recognized the moment. I thought that what I was going to do was going to work, and then I actually went for it. So um, then I had just, not a lot of chips, and then I had this crazy hand happen where I flopped a set of kings on a king 8 4 board against a guy who just called with king 8 suited, and then another guy in the big blind with pocket fours. So
Wow. 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 That's unbelievable.
yeah,
It's almost like set over set over set. I mean, not really, but I mean, set over top two. I mean, that's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah. So it was
So
interesting.
so obviously you have certain moments. Never really ran a huge stack up. I looked it up, and you were with 61 left. You were pretty much like middle of the pack, 26th out of 61, 10 out of 18. You get to the final table, you were 7 out of 9. You were a little short there. What was kind of going through your mind as you're slowly going through level by level, day by day? Was it, in your mindset, was it, let's get through this level? Was it let's get through this day? Let's just make it to the next day. What was kind of the mindset as you're going through? Because obviously you slowly made it through and got down to that final table.
Yeah, I think this is really good for people to hear too, because I don't think maybe people know this, or maybe they don't really understand it, or maybe the fact that I was able to do this and win should really reiterate or emphasize this point, which is throughout many like portions, especially towards the end of the tournament, I was around 20 big blinds, like
Right.
maybe anywhere from 18 to 25 big blinds. And the average stack, because we were so deep stacked and they had so many chips and play levels were so long, was always around 50 big blinds.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
So when you're sitting there with 18 big blinds and everyone around you has 50, 75, 100 big blinds, and there's a lot of great players that have a lot of these big stacks, it's really easy to feel like overwhelmed, or maybe that you can't do this, or like just grateful to be there, and if I bust now it's okay. So having the experience, and I know how to play this stack. So my whole thought process through that last few days was, this is how many big blinds I have, and I know that I'm not going all in with the stack. I'm still raising, and I would look for spots where I could make like 3 bets or potentially run a bluff still, because I know that I still can. And so I'm not just like resigned at any point or feeling like I just need to be all in. I'm very aware that it's just, this is my stack now. This is the strategy that I play, and I'm not going to get caught up in looking over here and seeing all these big stacks and feeling like maybe I can't do this. And that was huge, because it really is easy to just feel defeated at times. And
Sure.
like day 5, I folded the entire day. I came in with like an average stack. I folded down, made a big hero call, and then I folded all the way back down again to the final table. And that's hard to do. That takes, you really have to know. And I was just determined to not make a mistake, to do something foolish, thinking that I needed to make something happen.
Right. Right. And I think that some people end up getting like chip envy too, right? You have 18, 20 big blinds. And this is very similar for everyone people who haven't played the main event. The main event, usually the average stack is around 60, 65 big blinds throughout the entire tournament. So when you have like 15, 20 big blinds, which is very common in smaller buy-in events, right? Where you start out with maybe like 10,000 chips. 15, 20 big blinds is about the average stack. A $3,500 main event WPT, that usually has maybe 40 big blinds average stack. So again, it's not uncommon for you to have 15 to 20 big blinds for people who are out there. But when you're in a tournament like this, where the stacks start out huge, it's usually 50, 60 big blinds. So you are somewhat short. But even if you are shorter than the average player there, that doesn't mean you still don't have room to maneuver, like you were saying. And I think that when people haven't experienced it, they feel like, oh, I'm so short right now compared to everyone else. I got to do something. And I mean, you see it all the time. I'm sure you saw it multiple times on day 4 or 5. People with 15 to 25 big blinds just literally ripping it. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? And they rip it with like ace, queen, or nines or tens because they feel desperate, quote unquote. And then just somebody obviously wakes up with a hand. You're like, I call with kings, right? You're like, I don't know. Like, and then, they just hand you over 25 big blinds. You're like, well, that was a bonus, that kind of thing. I mean, you must have seen that, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get to the final table, as we talked about, somewhat short stacked. And you really didn't like, it wasn't like, I looked at it, it wasn't like you were busting out players that, sometimes when people are short stacked, they just like bust out players all over the place and they rise up through the leaderboard. But really, that wasn't the case for you. You just kind of maneuvered through everybody, right?
Yeah, I think an effect, like when I was reflecting back on the final table and even the final two tables, I think an effect of being a short stack is that people kind of count you out. They don't really, nobody expected much from me. As far as like, the big stacks are playing pretty much every hand, raising, pushing us around. And, there were a couple hands where one one in particular where I bluffed the Toby Lewis, who is the most established pro at the table, where I knew he just didn't see it coming. And, it was those kind of things that I had nothing to lose. I
Right.
was the one that was coming from behind and they had a lot of chips and, they were the ones that were doing the bullying, but then when you kind of come in with that and they can feel that energy of like, you have nothing to lose and you come into their space being aggressive, they're just kind of like, oh, I'll just fold. Like I can win all these other pots, just making other people fold.
Right.
And it was a hand where it was just he raised pre-flop and then he had a hand that he was checking down. Just he checked, I checked, he checked, I checked, I checked, he checked. And then on the river, I just bet two times the pot because I thought I knew, I thought he even had a top pair, which was an ace or second pair. And I'm pretty sure he folded an ace on that, just never thinking that I was going to be making that bluff. And it was those types of plays and that kind of mindset for me that allowed me to, as we just kind of slowly took my spots here and there. And then when we got three-handed, I ramped up the aggression. I could tell that they, for the first time, realized that they were in a dogfight with me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that, like you said, it's really, I think a lot of credit is due to you with regards to that, because very rarely do you get in a situation where you are playing for this much money, down the stretch. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often. How often do you get the opportunity to play for something like this? Ninth place was $200,000, eighth 240, sixth 290, seventh 290, sixth 360. I mean, like, this is $100,000 jumps in a lot of respects. And you make one mistake, you go out in eighth instead of fourth. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you have to really make that decision. And a lot of people, and I will fully admit that I've been in that situation where I have been nervous and scared to pull that off as well, because you're like, oh God, if you go out here, that would really suck. And it's a very challenging thing to be able to pull that off and have the basically the cojones to do it, right? I mean, that's really what you have to do. And like you said, you got down to three-handed. You guys end up making this deal where you all pretty much do a kind of a chop payout and then leave 313 up top, 101 for second. How long was the discussion? Was it a quick one? Did everyone agree, or did you have to kind of convince anybody, or how was that discussion gone through?
Yeah, it was a lengthy discussion. It lasted for 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, and
Yeah.
it was tense. I mean, again, we're $1.2 million in discussion,
Right.
and we're trying to figure out what's fair. There's a guy who has I had 13 million, he had 23 million. So he obviously felt like he wanted to get, maybe somewhat better of a deal. So he's asking us for like tens of thousands of dollars. We're like saying, absolutely not. And then the other players like, I'm the most experienced player here, and
Right. Right. Right.
you're going back and forth with this whole kind of, and I get it, like people, like you're trying to promote yourself, you're trying to, where else, if you can strike a little bit of fear in me, and I could just maybe give you 100,000 or 50,000 just to, because the difference, going out in ninth, but being able to lock up potentially, like it was around 1.2 million, I was able to lock up like close to 300,000 more just right there, if I'm willing, so they tested the waters. And I think, I let them know that I was, there to play and we could play it if they wanted to. And then we ultimately kind of settled on like a pretty fair, it was fair. It was just the ICM value,
Yep.
which
Hmm.
is, for a certain portion. Then we decided to take out a percentage and play for the rest. But yeah, it's tense, like you don't get into those negotiations often. I mean, it's a $1.2 million negotiation, and it's,
Right.
it's tense.
Yeah. 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 No, 100%. I mean, it must have been very, very interesting. Obviously, a great situation to be in, and you love that scenario. So you end up making the chop scenario. Now you're playing it out, and ultimately, Clayton knocks out Toby Lewis. Now you are heads up with him, and he was a little bit of a chip leader at that point, but two big hands from your standpoint. One was, I think it was ace 10 over ace queen. You didn't play heads up that long, but that was a big hand that doubled you up through there. You get it all in, and you flop a 10. He has a gut shot with a king 10 on the board.
Ace
That
queen.
doesn't.
Yeah, he
He
ace
has
queen.
ace queen, but king 10 shows up on the
Yeah.
board. So I think you flop the pair. He obviously now needs a queen or a jack for the straight. Doesn't get there. And then a few hands later, you guys get it all in again. This time, ace king for him, ace queen for you. Here it is. You end up with three queens. Ace queen seems like it's a good hand for you, my friend.
It is. Yeah. So I just have to say, and just to be totally honest, like, the ace 10 hand, it was a pretty big mistake on my part. And, you know, it's a couple reasons that happened. One is, you're 6 days in on a tournament, and, it's 9 hours in on a final table. And, like it's hard to just not make mistakes throughout, so that was a part of it. But I think the biggest reason was I was trying to play a strategy heads up that I had never played before, that included doing a bunch of, it was fairly complex. And so I just think my implementation of it was a bit off. And it really, for me, was a really hard pill to swallow that I messed that hand up.
Yeah,
So that was a really frustrating moment for me, but I was able to be fortunate enough. The poker gods decided already that they wanted me to win that hand. And then
right.
they were like, you know what, you messed this one up, but we're going to give it to you anyway. And then I obviously so fortunate to pick up the ace queen suited, and then he goes all in with the ace king suited. It comes a king, a queen with two spades. I have ace queen of spades, so the sweat is there, and just a queen right on the turn. So, the heads up was like not a long battle, but we had some interesting hands, and I made a big nine deuce bluff where
Right,
I
triple barrel
was,
bluff. Yeah,
yeah, and I showed it and was able to get a good amount of momentum. And then at the end of the day, I just ran so much better than him to win the title on
sure.
those two hands. So
Right.
that's poker.
Yep. You are married, as we mentioned before, to former Poker News reporter Christy Arnett, and she is expecting. You are both expecting within the next month or so. I think you said August 22nd. congratulations, first of all. And
Thank you.
what an incredible baby shower present this is.
It really is.
It will
Yeah,
take care of a lot of diapers and wipes.
you know what? For quite a while, and I feel like it's gonna sound, woo woo, whatever. I don't care, but I really think that there's some entity bigger than myself that wanted me to win this tournament for my son and my family. And I, yeah, I don't know. Baby Run Good just seems to be like a real thing. Like I won a tournament, like the week before, and a fairly large field. And how often do we win tournaments? Obviously you need things to break your way, and things broke my way in that tournament as well. So, I'm not above saying that, I've been running well, and I'll take it. I love it. Anytime like the universe wants to show me good fortune, I know enough. I've been in poker long enough to just
Right.
take it and sit there and just be happy.
Right. Can't worry about it. Don't worry about when it'll end. Just take it as long as you can, and so be it. Right. It is what it is. So, with regards to this now, obviously, incredible babies coming, but what's kind of the future in addition to family, baby? What's the future for playing? Because obviously the World Series online is going on right now. Couple months, World Series is. Can you believe we're actually going to have a live World Series where everyone's as excited as you are? Could you imagine everyone else who's so excited? The predictions are crazy with regards to the main event having over 10,000 people, which I'll be honest with you. I think if Europe opens up and is allowed to travel by then, I don't see it not happening. I mean, I just think so many people are just dying to play. So, what's your future plans?
Yeah. So, I was planning on taking a bunch of time off when my son was born, and this is just such perfect timing for that, because just to be able to take that time off, and have a lot of the financial stresses eased. And you know there's always a thought of like, maybe I should play, maybe I could go play, even when I know I'm taking the time off. It kind of tortures me sometimes, that thought. I just can put that completely aside and just enjoy those first precious few months and years, and just spending so much time at home with my family. I'm just so beyond grateful for that. And I think um yeah, I'll play some up until my son is born, and then I think during the World Series we're gonna rent a house, and my son will be a couple months old. We'll play, and I'll be there, and then as soon as that's over, we're just putting it all to the side.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Andrew, congratulations. What a great story. I was following along the whole way. Obviously, knew who you were, and so we were kind of watching it. And then when you're seeing Christie's social media stuff going through, and her kind of doing her play-by-play through it, and it was, it's exciting. It obviously kind of indirectly knowing somebody who wins something like this and life-changing money. It's fantastic. So congratulations. I know prior to this you were being prophetic, I guess, by asking for a seven-figure win on social media, and here it is. And congratulations, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Bernard. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, I look forward to seeing it and following along. And all the best to you in the World Series and all your listeners. I know that everybody's really been waiting for this one for a while. And if anyone out there, if you guys see me in the hall, and what, I always love a good friendly interaction, conversation. So don't be a stranger.
Well, I won't be. When I see you, we'll go grab a beer and celebrate. And congratulations again, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it. Andrew Moreno here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show 2021 Wynn Millions Main Event champion for almost $1.5 million. When we come back next week, we will continue our 14th anniversary celebration of the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We will have many guests coming in the future, including Andrew's brother, Johnny, will be on talking about this event and his adventures in his social media world. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody.